Backyard Green Films is proud to present this episode of Agri-Culture with your host, Alara Bowman. Alara and her husband Rick travel throughout the land in their teardrop trailer that they have nicknamed Maggie, bringing you stories about their travels and the people they meet. They visit farmers, ranchers, and just about anyone who loves putting their hands in the dirt or their feet in stirrups. For the past 3 years, they have been filming a documentary about heritage breed animals entitled The Holstein Dilemma, Heritage Breeds, and the Need for Biodiversity. In those travels, they have gotten to meet some very interesting people. Here's one of those interviews.
Hi, this is Alara, and welcome back to our podcast. Sometimes you see something that looks or moves or acts differently than what you're expecting, but it takes you a minute to figure out why. In this podcast, we'll talk about the Akhal-Teke horse with 3 people that raise them in very different locations. So first, I'll give you the quick Wikipedia-type rundown on the horse itself. The Akhal-Teke is a horse that originated in Turkmenistan. It's a really ancient breed, and it was used by the nomads for raiding runs in the desert, so plain sturdy just doesn't cut it. It had to be dependable and smart, thrifty with food and water, and be able to be both a distance and a sprinting animal. And by ancient, by the way, there's been talk of Alexander the Great and his potential connection with these horses, that kind of ancient. According to Story Publishing, the difficulties that Rome had in conquering the Middle East regions are said to be connected with the military strengths gained by the use of Akhal-Teke horses by the Parthians. Upon first glance, you might try to figure out if this horse that you're looking at is an Arabian or a Thoroughbred, but they're definitely not that. You start with an animal about 15 or 16 hands and long and sleek everywhere. Then you stretch it. Long body, longer legs, and a long tail that often comes close to the ground. They have a really long and majestic head as well. Many have hooded eyes and they have no forelock at all. And the sum total is a look that's just plain exotic. There's a really amazing thing that happens with the coats on many of these horses. The light shows up differently, and it reflects along the shaft of the hairs in a way that makes them look like they've been plugged into a battery. It looks like the special effects department got hold of them and then decided to experiment. It happens on some coat colors more than others, but when it does, it really pops, and they glow like a light bulb. Then they move. As much as a horse can, this one moves like a cat. It kind of slinks, or maybe glides is a better term. I've been told that riding them is very comfortable, as they have a really smooth stride. But they're just plain beautiful to watch, whether they're moving or they're standing still. And then there's the non-visual part. They're smart and they're willing. But you have to be a person that's comfortable riding and controlling a horse, because I've heard it said if you're not a confident rider, the horse will definitely be in charge. If you're that person, however, you have a faithful, loyal, willing animal that'll go to the wall for you come hell or high water. The Akhal-Teke is an animal that's one of our absolute favorites. It was also, most enjoyably, one of the most difficult to film. I don't know if you've ever been to a place where someone has puppies, with happily curious animals all over the place. They're in your lap, sniffing your feet, breathing in your ear, nibbling on your shirt, smelling your hat, walking in front of your shot, drooling on your camera. Oops, that was the film shoot. We have a video of these gorgeous horses on our Backyard Green Films YouTube channel, so please visit our page if you'd like to see them in motion. So now to the interviews. 3 places that are about as different as you can get. We visited with Tish Sar, with Pleasant Grove Akhal-Tekes at her ranch near Sacramento, California. Tish, like all the Akhal-Teke people we met, was incredibly gracious. She took time out of her extremely busy schedule to pick us up at the airport, feed us lunch, and cart us around for the day to shoot at both her ranch and a riding stable to see the horses in motion. She took her gorgeous stallion out for a quick walk for us, and there are a few things more majestic than that. Straight out of an action movie shot. It was a very hot and sunny day in California, so this is where the light bulb thing in the coat really came out. Wow, is all I have to say. Brandy, the trainer at the stable, took one of the horses out for a spin to show us the gates and to talk about her experiences with the Akhal-Tekes. Again, watching them move is just plain wow. Amrita Eibold is from Sweetwater Farm in Friday Harbor, Washington, in the San Juan Islands. This area couldn't be any more different than the high plains of Colorado, and the day we visited was a typical September day in Washington state. The smell of the northwest pine trees and ocean air were blending together, and there was a very heavy mist falling. Amrita really didn't want us to film that day, I think, because she said the horses were not looking their best without the sun, and that's what most people would want to see. She graciously gave us the entire day, though, and took us out to the pasture to visit her herd. That puppy thing I mentioned, that was Amrita's herd. We spent the morning surrounded by 30-odd horses of all ages, shapes, and sizes, and attempted to get a clean 15-second interview shot. It remains one of my most absolute favorite experiences in my whole life, and I couldn't have cared less about the sun. I'm trying not to laugh at the horses and their antics during the whole shoot, as you can tell in our video. I'm smiling just thinking about it, and we'll definitely take Amrita up on her offer to come back again to stand in the field to get that happy feeling again. Last, we met with Joss Shearer McMahon, who raises her Akhal-Tekes on a ranch in Livermore, Colorado, which is about 100 miles north of Denver. When I say Denver, you might think you'd be in the middle of pine trees and high mountains, but Colorado's a place where you can get just about every kind of geography. Joss is pretty close to the border of Wyoming, and she and her husband live on a lonely but beautiful high desert ranch. The area and climate are probably very much like Turkmenistan, with warm summers, cold winters, and dry grass plains. Joss does endurance races with her horses, which is probably also very close to what these horses were originally bred to do. Let me tell you that both the horse and the rider have to be in serious shape to participate in that particular sport. You know the movie Hidalgo, where they do the race across miles of the Arabian Peninsula? That kind of thing. Josh usually does the ones that are 100 miles or so, but she and her horse Patrick have to train for months in order to be in tip-top condition. They're absolutely two of the finest athletes you'll ever meet, and just plain nice, both of them. I hope you enjoy listening to the podcast with all three of the Akhal-Teke people we met. I hope you also do a search for the Akhal-Teke horses and visit the webpage of the Akhal-Teke Association of America. There you can find links to Joss, Amrita, and Tish, and their beautiful horses. And by the way, I'm still smiling.
The Akhal-Teke breed originated from the region now known as Turkmenistan, where they were the pride of the nomadic Turkic people. These desert tribesmen cultivated the Akhal-Teke's speed, willingness, and endurance, as the Akhal-Teke was a true part of their culture. In the 1880s, the Russian army invaded Turkmenistan, and many of these exotic horses were destroyed in order to cripple the strength of the tribal warriors. From these remaining horses, the modern Akhal-Teke emerged. Okay, I am Tish Sayre. My husband and I, Jack, own Pleasant Grove Akhal-Tekes. This is Gallo. He is a 12-year-old Akhal-Teke stallion. We have 13 horses here on the ranch currently, with 4 on the way.
Tell me about the location, where you're located, the climate, the conditions.
Okay, we're located 20 minutes north of Sacramento, California. It is an arid climate. We have hot, very dry summers, and it doesn't snow here, but we do have rain. It's a very sticky clay mud situation during the winter. They seem to do well in this climate. Typically don't abscess. Their hooves don't abscess. If I'm going to have an abscess, it's usually going to be my quarter horse. But they do well in this climate.
Tell me about the personality of this horse.
They're very social. They're incredibly social. People have described them as almost dog-like. Once they trust you, they are going to go to the wall for you. I've taken 3-4-year-old stallions out on a complicated trail ride, and at first they're like, wait, what is that? And it's like, okay, you know what, we're good, we're fine. And they go right through the water crossing. They go right over the bridge, whatever it might be. They go right up that steep rock cliff. these guys, I mean, I've raised these guys, and they, they're as friendly as can be.
Well, we can't see this off camera, but he's got two that are nibbling on his shoulder almost.
It's making a little tough.
But this is not just your horses or your breeding. I mean, this is all of the Akhal-Tekes.
It is the breed. They're incredibly social horses. They want to know what's going on. Their history, when they come from Turkmenistan, and the Turkic tribemen actually had them in their tents with them. They'd cover them with silk. They were part of the family. They lived with their horses, and they were a revered part of the family. So they are incredibly friendly. Sometimes it's a little challenging to get a shot of them. you try to get pictures and you're like, oh, a nose. That's what I was going for.
Well, you said, I was thinking that we were extremely lucky because when we were at Amrita, she had a shot that she was talking about the Akhal-Teke Association and the breed, and then the horse, just like he was trained, walked right up to her, just did this right here. So maybe this is just the standard.
They're incredibly. He's got a horse on his shoulder.
Yes, he does. So do they do this from birth, or you have to kind of socialize them a bit?
It depends on the horse, but 90% of them will be in your back pocket.
Yeah.
90% of them want to be with their people.
Now you mentioned trust. They have to trust you beforehand. It's my understanding that this horse will know whether or not you're a rider that it wants to trust. Is that correct?
My experience is that it does take a little bit of trust, but once you have that trust, you have that trust, and they really will. They'll go to the wall for you. They'll do what you need them or ask them to do.
So is this a horse for an experienced rider or a novice rider or somewhere in between?
It can go the whole range. I can put my 4-year-old on my stallion. I don't let her go free on my stallion, but it like any breed, there is a range. Most of my riding I do on my stallions, and they're actually pretty good in a group. They're pretty good. I can ride 2 stallions together. I can ride them with other mares, but they, it depends on the horse, and it depends on the experience of the horse. So I think it goes the range.
Does that make them more or less, I was thinking if you did have a horse that kind of was very sensitive to the rider and the trust issues, then you can't necessarily use this horse if you own a riding stable, and you're renting out your horses or leasing your horses. Is that the kind of thing that this horse is not suited for, in your opinion, or might be? Or
I don't think so. I think as long as you have a trusting animal, as long as they understand people, obviously they're going to do better with their person or their set of people. But I mean, look at her. She's trying to,
Yeah.
She's on top of you, and she's never met you before.
This is like a dog. I mean,
they can be very dog-like.
Honey, can we have one of these?
I'll walk out in the pasture, and I'll have a trail of 7 horses kind of wandering behind me. So I think that they can be used as in a stable situation.
Now, one of the things that they're often used for is endurance.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
They've got excellent stamina. They've got excellent stamina. They've got excellent go. If you want, we can put this one in the round pen, and you can kind of see her move out a little bit. They have good recovery times, good recovery rates. They're narrow, but they have a deep heart girth right there. So they've got good recovery times.
So what does that mean, recovery times to a lay person?
Once they're out there going, generally in an endurance ride, you come into a vet check, and when you're at that vet check, you want your horse to be able to come down to a normal heart rate quickly so that you can proceed with the ride. And so their recovery times, coming down to that baseline heart rate is quick.
So they're natural athletes that are in condition.
They are incredibly athletic. I have seen these horses do things that horses should not be able to do. I think that when this one was about 3 months old, she managed to get over a 5-foot fence. I'm not really sure how she did it. But I walk out, and her mama's on this side and she's on that side. I'm like, we might have a jumper.
Well, I did see on when you're doing research, you look at all these pictures on YouTube, and the horses are jumping, and some of them just go whether or not there's a rider, whether or not there's anybody out there to look at them. They're just jumping. So
they're incredibly athletic, and they've got a good heart. They've got a good try. Yeah. They want to work. They enjoy working.
Hi, my name is Brandy. I've been riding horses for a living for over 20 years, mainly quarter types, but everything. The one main difference that I've found of Akhal-Tekes compared to most breeds is how gentle and kind they are. Your quarter horses tend to buck. Your Arabs tend to be a little bit more flighty. Morgan's hot. These guys, they're just gentle to start them. They're one of the few that I'll just work them on the ground 2 or 3 days, then up on their back we go and off. Very rarely ever put out a buck, and when it does, so smooth that you wouldn't even know they're bucking. The other thing that sets them apart is their elegance. They have this huge stretch, even at their jaw, a reach that's so beautiful to watch, and it's very smooth, very pleasant to ride. Their personality, somebody summed it up once, and I thought, that's it, that's the breed. They're very calm without being lazy. I think that's what sets them apart. They're willing to do anything. They're not going to be fiery at it. They can think things through. I find them just an amazing animal that I've really enjoyed having them. For the last 3 years, I've been riding a few different ones.
Fantastic. Now, when you're on the horse, are they as pretty as when you watch them walk?
They are prettier. They are prettier. This one especially, she's got that gold metallic look, and you can just watch her, and she's just so elegant, so beautiful, and she just glows in the sun. Everywhere we've taken her, people always stop just because they wonder what I've put on her, and this is fresh out of the pasture. She's a brood mare. And the other thing is she was off for 2 years having a baby. We took her out of the pasture, put a couple weeks of riding on her, and took her to the expo down in Sacramento, and she did amazing. They've just got that personality. You don't need to use them all the time. You just pull them out of the pasture and go. And to me, that's a really good horse, an honest horse.
So you do just mostly riding? Do you do eventing or jumping or anything else, or you do that?
I have a background in reining, which is very far what these guys are not going to be doing. But I just have an overall, I like to put a finish on a horse. Leg works, neck reining, side passing, that kind of thing. And these guys are phenomenal at it, partially because that reach is so huge and they're so easy to work with.
So if you had a type of individual that you would say, that's the perfect person that needs an Akhal-Teke horse, new rider or whatever it might be, what would the, would they be a jumper? Would they be would you say to anybody that might want a new eventing horse, this is the horse for you, or what types of things?
Yeah, so there's trail riding, just your average trail riding. These are amazing horses because they can go forever. You can go as fast as you want, as slow as you want. They're not hot, they're not pushy, but they're happy to go. So you can go from your average trail rider who just wants to walk slowly down the trail, and they're going to be great for that, all the way up to your endurance people who really want to book. You ask these horses to go, they go on a long trot forever, and they don't use a lot of energy being fussy or getting nervous. They've just got a really calm, quiet kind of personality, but they have the endurance to go forever. So those two. The other thing, dressage, that's that reach, that phenomenal reach that they have. So beautiful to watch when they do bring their head in and get bridled up. You see that gorgeous long neck. It's really stunning, and I know a lot of people like them eventing.
Excellent. Now I understand too that these horses are horses that will come back to the resting heart rate very quickly. Is that your experience with that?
Very much my experience. My daughter, who's only 12 years old, rides a Mustang Teke Cross, and she's come in at the finish of some 50 milers, and the vets cannot believe that their heart rate is so low. They ask her if their horse knows that it just did 50 miles. And it's because they don't get nervous. They've got that really kind of calm, quiet personality. They don't exert energy getting nervous or getting antsy. They're just really mellow. They're mellow.
So if you had a people sport to compare this animal to, would they be a distance runner or a short-term runner?
Absolutely.
A player, a sprinter, what would this horse be?
Distance runner or gymnastics. You can go either way.
My name is Amrita Eibold. I own Sweetwater Farm Akhal-Teke. We are located in Friday Harbor on San Juan Island in Washington State. And I breed Akhal-Teke horses.
One of the things that we talked about before that you were saying was that this breed has a history. So tell us a little bit about the history.
So their history goes so far back that one of the oldest cities that is still preserved in Turkmenistan is Nisa. And Nisa is just outside Ashgabat, like 5 miles maybe. And the old city of Nisa was famous for their gold horses. And we think that these gold horses were the Akhal-Teke. And before that, it was the Pazyryk tribe. And they were so feared because they would dress up their horses with these felt antlers on them, and they would come and raid a town, and the people would be like, it's like aliens had landed, and they rode golden horses, and they were, the gold has always been the favorite color through history, and so their history goes so far back, and in the Altai Mountains they found graves where they've done research, and they still had hair on them, and they think that it's exactly this breed, the Akhal-Teke, that they found in those graves that are at least 3,000 years old, if not older.
Yeah. Very same shape and form,
yeah.
correct?
No, but because of the hides and the hair, they could test it
They could do testing.
to today's horse.
How many are there in this country right now, do we think?
Oh, I think about 350, between 350 and 400.
Registered.
Yes, registered between the US and Canada.
That you can bring in genetic material from outside, from other countries, from a different source, and still be able to introduce new genes into your population, correct?
That's correct.
Do you do that?
Yes, I do. So 2 years ago, I imported semen from a stallion that I really liked in England, and because we have such a small gene pool, I think the number one problem we have in the breed is people line breeding, what they call line breeding. Basically, to me, it's inbreeding, and it's one thing I definitely do not want to do, because anytime you inbreed or line breed, you're compounding on facts that may not be seen to the naked eye right now, but the next generation may have club feet, may have infertility problems, the list goes on and on. And so I for the 17 years that I've been into this, I scrutinize, I collect photographs and scrutinize. I make photograph pedigrees of the horses, and I look at all the feet and the legs and the conformation and make sure that I don't see a fault in there before I pair up a breeding. So I try to do as much research as I can.
So one of the things that you talked about, you almost refused to let us film, it seemed like, is because it was raining and these horses were not going to...
Oh, that's right. Because they're famous for their metallic sheen, and that is their claim to fame.
But I have to say, this behavior of this friendliness of this horse, that's kind of a selling point in itself, and that doesn't require the sun.
True. But once you see their coat and the shimmer, and especially in the buckskins, it looks like liquid gold. And in history, the story goes that the king of China, the emperor of China, in the 1300s, his soldiers came back and told him about the golden horses, and he had to have one. So he sent an army to Turkmenistan, and they came defeated. They came empty-handed. So he married his daughter to a Turkmen girl, and as dowry, he got Akhal-Teke horses with the golden sheen.
That was some daughter he must have had, right?
Yes, so that is how the story goes. So in China, the Akhal-Teke now is super famous, and they've bought up all the best horses in Russia. And they had their first, in 2012, I would think, they had their first Akhal-Teke convention I got invited in Beijing. It was amazing. And
Tell me what makes an Akhal-Teke an Akhal-Teke in terms of the personality. Let's talk personality.
Okay.
well, the personality, since for the last 5,000 years, they have been really close to their owners. In Turkmenistan, the stallions were tethered to their tents, and they were their main warrior horse. So they were always in heavy felt cloth and ready to go to raid the Silk Road at any minute. So it really passes on in the breed that they're very people oriented.
Okay, if you could state your name and title, please.
My name is Joss Shearer McMahon, and I am the owner of Magic Valley Akhal-Tekes.
Okay, if you could give a description of your ranch or farm and the region that you are located.
Magic Valley Akhal-Tekes is located in Livermore, Colorado, which is similar in climate and terrain to the steppes of Turkmenistan.
So what is the climate like here?
High desert.
Does it get hot and cold?
Our temperatures vary. We have warm days and cold nights.
Okay, if you could please give a description of your heritage breed and how, with the breed that you chose or that chose you.
I raise Akhal-Teke horses, which are from Turkmenistan, the Akhal Oasis, and bred by the Teke tribe for centuries. They are one of the oldest and purest breeds in the world. And I first became aware of them in the early 1980s, reading an article in the Colorado Country Life magazine. I'd never heard of the Akhal-Teke, and I immediately called a horse friend of mine, and we went out to look at this breed, and were enamored with the conformation and the personalities. The broodmares and babies came up around us. They were not pushy, they were curious and respectful, and I fell in love immediately.
So when you saw the pictures of these horses, what was it that you thought was so different about them?
This breed has a very distinctive look. They have a hooded eye, lack of foretop, a fine silky coat, and they're long and lean, kind of like a greyhound build.
Now this looks like a very delicate horse to me. Would you call this a delicate horse?
This horse may be fine boned, but they are not delicate in the least. The bone density is very dense.
So, before I get into the rest of that part of it, did you farm with other animals before you did heritage breeds?
Actually, we have done another heritage breed. We did do Irish Dexter cattle for a while. Previous to that, I was not breed specific with horses or cattle. We raised some meat animals, and I dabbled in other horses, mostly race-bred Appaloosas.
So how do you find these horses different from your standard, your other Appaloosa horses?
This breed is unique in its efficient gaits. They have extremely ground-covering trot, canter, even the walk. They move like a much bigger horse than they are. Extremely comfortable to ride, which for me is very important as I get older and stiffer.
So is this a gaited horse?
They are not a gaited horse. They have regular walk, trot, canter, although there is some historical evidence that some of the bloodlines were gaited, but we seem to have lost those.
I consider myself somewhat of a horse person, and I had never heard of this breed before starting this. Why do you think it is that people don't know more about this breed?
I think the main reason that people do not know more about this breed is because there are less than 4,000 of them worldwide, and I think we have close to 400 in the United States now, but when I first started breeding them, there were less than 200. And we've moved from the ALBC critical list to threatened, so we are making progress.
So that's a pretty small gene pool.
It's a very small population to work with.
So have you had any issues with with difficulties that might come up from a small gene pool?
Because the gene pool is so small, back in the probably late 90s, There were some issues we were finding in some bloodlines with some conformation problems. And so we started an education program on how to select for breeding for proper conformation and for improvement of those things that could be improved.
So you just finished a race. Would you explain, with this horse I believe, would you explain what race you just went on and how it went?
I just came back from the Virgin and Outlaw XP ride in Red Mountain, Utah, outside of Panguitch. It was a 5-day, 50 miles a day. They're called multi-day endurance rides, where each day is different trails, and 4 of the days the vet checks were out, so you would ride 25 miles out to a 1-hour vet hold, and then take a different route back into camp. All the trails on these XP rides are done with GPS coordinates, as well as being marked with ribbons and pie plates. This horse of mine and I, on the first day of this ride, achieved our 3,000 mile medallion. That's lifetime miles for the 2 of us as a team competing in endurance. So that's more than I've had on any other of the Akhal-Tekes I've competed on. The scenery of this ride was incredible. It was a combination of riding through sandstone cliffs and narrow trails with drop-offs on both sides. Part of the reason I enjoy the sport so much is because I get to visit parts of the country where I have never ridden and see country that otherwise you would never see.
So now that you've found this horse, can you do you feel a connection to them that might keep you raising these horses forever, or do you think you might switch to a different breed?
This is the first breed I have encountered that I will never switch from. They're just quite personable and so comfortable to ride, and seem willing to try whatever it is you want to do. So they form a partnership that is absolutely incredible that I have not had with any other breeds.
Would you say that this horse is suitable for all ages and skill sets?
As much as any other breed, I think this horse could be suitable for any age and type of rider. They are a brave breed, and how I mean that is they're not apt to shy and spook at things, but they're also a very forward horse, so they could intimidate a less experienced horse person.
What's your favorite thing about this horse?
My favorite thing about the Akhal-Teke? I love the exotic looks. I really do. They're like no other breed of horse on the planet.
If you liked our podcast, please subscribe. This is how we keep going. And please tell your friends to join us. Please feel free to post any questions or comments that you might have to our social media sites. Our Twitter feed is @BackyardGreenFilms, spelled BKYRDGREENFILMS. Our Instagram is @BackyardGreenFilms, BACKYARDGREENFILMS. Our Facebook is Backyard Green Films. Our YouTube URL is youtube.com/backyardgreenfilms.
We would like to thank Tish, Amrita, and Joss for taking the time to speak with us and for all their generous hospitality. If you'd like more info about these majestic animals, please visit the Akhal-Teke Association of America's website at aghal-teke.org. That is spelled AKHAL-TEKE.org. You have been listening to Agri-Culture with your host, Alara Bowman. Please tune in for more upcoming episodes from our travels. We'd also like to thank our producer, Michelle Council. I'm Rick Bowman, your behind-the-scenes editor. Until next time. This has been a presentation of Backyard Green Films Productions, all rights reserved, copyright 2019.